want on this night. We do what we want. We make our own rules. This is our night. This is
our show.
On this night, we rise.
This is the bleeding edge of science, technology, and ethics. This is
Solution. Unwilling to submit.
We learn all that is learnable.
Tonight, power shifts. Tonight, we raise our instruments of anarchy.
Peaceful coexistence, encryption, software, secure devices, and our minds.
Tonight, we are unbound by law.
It's time for Sovryn Tech. And now your host, the golden stallion of the tech world, the rated R radio star, Brian Sovryn.
You know my name, the Golden Stallion, the Man of Tomorrow, Savzu, the Rated R radio star. Ready to get into some Sovryn Tech, and you know, a lot of people ask me, they say, Stallion, where the hell do you get all this energy? Well, let me tell you. All right. Usually, you know, I record this show every Saturday morning, and I started off, well, like I start off every morning, I listen to the Doom theme by Clint Mansell, that being from the original video game, PC game. And then, generally, I'll watch a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Then I'll listen to an album from Stryper. Oh, no. I know. Hey, I know what you're thinking. You're saying Stryper? But Stallion, you're an atheist. Aren't they a Christian band? No. You're not listening to their lyrics. You didn't see them backstage. I've never seen a more satanic band in my life. Oh man, and if you ever listen to their album Against the Law, fantastic. Anyway. Okay, so 2 out of those 3 things I actually do in the morning. The other one of them, maybe I don't. But anyway, no cocaine involved, I assure you. So that is where it all comes from, baby. Now, I want to tell you something, though. All right. It is, we're recording this. It's July 2nd. Well, in a couple days, one of the few Sovryn Tech holidays will be celebrated, and I wish for you to celebrate it with me. And that is on July 4th. It's not Independence Day on Sovryn Tech, baby. It's MK Lord's Day. Woohoo! One of the best out there. She is absolutely amazing. Just a beautiful human being. Go ahead and let her know. She's on Twitter, @MKLords. You know her work. You know her name. That's for damn sure. Go ahead and wish her a happy birthday come July 4th. But I love, appropriating bullshit holidays like Independence Day and putting it and giving credit to people that actually fucking deserve it. And MK Lords is certainly one of those. So anyway, happy MK Lord's Day, everybody. Woohoo! All right. This might be, I say it every week, so much to cover. This might be the most jam-packed episode with news of Sovryn Tech that I may have ever done. I mean, we really have a lot to get into. I do want to tell you, though, that when we get to the climax, of course, which is a part of the show where I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, I will discuss some recent changes, I guess you could say, in the business model of zog.ninja. I don't know if I want to call it the business model, but just some changes coming. I have not just coming, but that are already enacted, that are already available and out there that I want you to know about. So keep looking out for that. A lot of people are asking for the Independence Day review. I'm going to get into a little later in this episode. I'm going to get into some geeky shit. Okay, we got tons of science and tech to get into. Don't worry about that. All right, I'm going to get into some tech, some geeky shit later. All right, but it's not going to be what you think. But I will do an Independence Day review here in the near future. Won't be this episode. But like I said, I listened to the audiobook. If anything, I know some people haven't dug it. Okay, but personally, the story itself, I think, is fine and dandy. And I'm glad that a lot of people are recognizing, hey, let's at least have a third one, because the way they left the movie off, spoiler alert, the way they left the movie off, they really left it to where there could be more made. I told you that over a month ago when I listened to the audiobook and I already knew the story. But other people are wanting that, so I hope it happens. But right now it's not doing bank. If you want to help maybe that third movie come out, well, maybe go catch it this weekend. How about that? All right. Let's get into the random access. All right, we got a ton. This news week was a hell of a thing. I guess I'll open it up with, we finally have a name for Android N. That is the latest version of Android, which will probably be completely available this fall, along with some new devices from HTC. I believe they're working directly with Google. Android N has some interesting features. The two features in particular that I wrote about at the Dark Android blog when they were announced, because right now it's out there in beta, but there's a multi-window mode to where, you can, so this is interesting. With Android N, and by the way, the name they came up with is Nougat. If you don't know what Nougat is, it's, that's kind of just a word for nutty. And it's a nut bar of sorts, kind of a sweet nut bar, very popular in Germany. That was the first time I ever had one. It was not when I was over there. Not the best name. I really would have gone with Nerds. I would have paid the money to do Nerds. I mean, just the marketing alone would have been fantastic. But they didn't. So in my opinion, with the name, Alphabet/Google completely dropped the ball. Is it that important? Maybe not, but I mean, people are going to be saying it over and over again, but I mean, how great would it have been to say, oh yeah, in the latest, in Android Nerds, it would have been fantastic. And nobody had that website yet either. Maybe somebody bought the URL, even though I don't think there's actually anything at a URL like that. But Android Nougat, the couple features that I really like about it is apparently there's going to be that dark theme. Where everything goes dark. We'll talk about that. There's another OS that's going to be pushing that. I'm intrigued. This isn't hard to do. I don't know why every operating system hasn't done this before. Ubuntu has had effectively a dark mode for 15 years. I mean, like its default setting was pretty much a dark mode. I don't know what took so long. I mean, and especially, how many people do late night, for people that are really serious about technology and about, getting shit done and whatever. Generally, they're late night folk. And a dark theme is quintessential for that. A dark mode where there's no white, everything's, the background's all black and all this stuff. Yeah, you could set windows with the high contrast _1 mode, right? Believe me, I used to do that. but it's really not the same. But anyway, so Android will have a full, system-wide dark mode, apparently. Personally, any app I download, if it has a dark theme, I turn it on right away. But the other one is the multi-window mode, which, kind of even on the smallest screens allows you to have multiple apps open at the same time, kind of side by side. Now, as I understand it, the official reference devices, that of course being the Nexus devices, the new ones that'll come out this fall, in which we'll have Android Nougat, will, and did they, I don't even think they said if it was Android 7.0 now that I think of it, because, Marshmallow 6.0, Lollipop was 5.0. Maybe it's 6.1 and it's Nougat. Like how Ice Cream Sandwich became 4.1 and then it became Jelly Bean, right? I don't know. But anyway, the multi-window mode, supposedly the Nexus devices that'll have it will not allow for like a free floating window to where you could resize it and put it anywhere. That's my understanding of it right now. Of course, that can change. We've got a couple months yet, 2-3 months yet, probably before this gets officially, fully released out of beta. So that kind of sucks, but as I understand it, the ability is there within Nougat itself to, for other manufacturers to bake that into their own launcher, their own skin over Android that they like to use. But there it is. It's official. Android Nougat. There's not a whole lot. Security enhancements obviously will be involved. But as far as features that actually have any real substance or meaning, perhaps to the consumer and at least to myself, outside of the security, are those two, the multi-window mode and the dark theme is actually, for me, it's kind of a big one. Before I have another Android story I want to talk about. I want to talk about another thing that we have confirmed now, which is, understand, even though I'm not a fan of Microsoft. Well, I'm not a fan of, I'd be hard pressed to think of the tech company I am a fan of. But a lot of people, the most used operating system in the world is still Windows. And actually I did a poll, and if people remember, I talked about it, is, what is the most used operating system by listeners of Sovryn Tech? Guess what? It's Windows. It's not the only thing I use, but I use Windows as well to get some shit done. Okay. So, Microsoft news is important. It's worth talking about because there's people that use it. So anyway, been talking about for some time, there's the Windows 10 anniversary update coming out. I think I might have even mentioned it last week. And, everybody was thinking it'd be July 29th that it would come out. It's going to be August 2nd. And supposedly they're going to release this across the board, as in for every device that uses Windows 10, like a full version of it, including smartphones, I believe, will be using an anniversary update of, Windows 10 Mobile. The Xbox One will have Windows 10 Mobile. We'll have Windows 10 anniversary edition, and of course, all your PCs will have it. That dark theme that I mentioned for Android Nougat, so that is going to be one of the big features here, aside from security features, is that there will apparently be a dark theme that is system wide on Windows. Again, I don't know what took them so long, and there's certainly been plenty of ways with Windows to do that anyway on your own with third-party software or something like from Stardock. But there it is. I cool. I'll obviously turn it on and whatever. The other features, of course, coming are extensions for Microsoft Edge. That's Microsoft's web browser. I really wish, I got to tell you, I really wish that Microsoft stuck with calling it Spartan, just like they kept Cortana as Cortana. I mean, both names come from Halo, and Spartan was the original code name for Microsoft Edge, and they make sense because that's kind of the whole big deal, is that Cortana works with Microsoft Edge, so Cortana works with Spartan, or even call the web browser 117. I'm shocked at how few apps use numbers as their name. Maybe that would get confusing in the coding or something when you have version numbers and all that shit, but I think that'd be interesting. So whatever, maybe there's a part of me that if I ever used Edge, I would just call it Spartan. It's like, oh yeah, well, what web browser do you use? I use Spartan. I don't, folks, but I'm just saying. So that is on the way. There's going to be extensions, and I know there's ad blockers, LastPass, Microsoft Translator, and I think there's some others that are coming out for that. And hopefully there's just, some more performance enhancements, and obviously there'll be security enhancements and all of this. So that's Windows 10 anniversary update, or anniversary edition, that's coming out August 2nd. And, we'll see what happens when it happens. I will definitely be updating a machine to that. Now let's get back to, I'm kind of jumping around. All right. No, you know what? I'm not, there's a random access story that has to do with Android. I'm gonna hold off on it just for a second while we're talking about the Xbox One, and how that's going to be getting, effectively that's turning into a Windows 10 machine. Let's be real clear on that. It really is. Okay. Especially now that, it's getting an official anniversary edition update at the same time that every other Windows 10 machine is. I think that just kind of bolsters the point. And I don't really have a problem with that. I don't take issue with the fact that the Xbox One is effectively a Windows 10 machine. I mean, why the fuck not? Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of the Xbox or the Xbox One or any of that. I'm just saying, so what if it's that? I mean, especially if it can use apps. That makes the thing, that makes the Xbox One very appealing to a lot of people. Actually, we've got a great story. I was tempted to save this for Game Talk, but we got a lot to talk about on Game Talk, so I'll save that for later. But the Xbox One, if it has Windows 10 and it can run Windows 10 apps, not Windows 10 software, okay, as in like what I used to record the show, Audacity. That's not a Windows 10 app, a universal app. That's just software that works on any version of Windows, pretty much, and of course other operating systems. But Windows 10 universal apps, the App Store for that is getting insane. And I say that in a congratulatory way. You know, not that I care necessarily about them, and there are certainly plenty of problems with universal apps because I think it's a way to really control what can be on Windows, and it's closing down the operating system. Yes, it's already closed source. I know that. But yeah, these universal apps are something else. Like, I mean, there's a laundry list of them, and they're actually, you know, I've messed around with some of them. VLC came out this week, and of course, it has significantly less features than the full desktop software. But some of these are really slick. I'm surprised, and the quality of what's out there. I know at least up until recently, a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, well, you know, the apps in the Windows Store are you know, garbage and shit." Not anymore. Not in the average consumer eyes. I don't think these are crap. Like, even, you know, one thing I do have is I have the Twitter app installed. And speaking of something that has a dark theme, oh my. What I would give, because Twitter has that, you know, eye-searing white to it that I just cannot I cannot stand it, you know, with the website. Well, the you know, the universal app for Windows 10 has a dark theme, which I think the Android app just recently got a dark theme as well. But it has a dark theme, so you can set it for that. And then you can just get little notifications. That way you don't have to leave Twitter open. Because I don't really look at the fire hose. The only thing I look at, I have very specific lists on Twitter that I look at of like, well, look, folks, I'll be straightforward with you. I mean, I use Twitter a lot. You know, I have somewhere around 7,000 followers on there. You know, it's kind of my social media where I have a fair amount of reach. But really, like, as far as what I look at on there, I only follow like 6. Like, I have a list. I'm just being honest. I have a list where there's like maybe 6 people, and I just check out what they do. You know, or you know, I'm a creeper. No, no. Fortunately, no one's ever called me that. But you know, I just do that and like a couple of news sources, and you know, that's all I look at. And so, but the app is great because it'll just give me notifications when somebody wants to interact with me, and I love interacting with people on Twitter. You know, don't confuse me there, especially listeners of this show. And it's nice. So that way I don't have to keep, a website open that's using up a lot of resources. I mean, any tab that you have open in a Chrome-based web browser or even with Firefox, you know, just ups the ante on system resources. And if you're using a not so powerful machine, then it's very handy. I'm impressed by that. So anyway, I'm getting way into left field here. The Xbox One. So what actually happened with the Xbox One? Of course, you know, there's the new version. We talked about this last week. There's the Xbox One S coming out, which is really fun. You know, I want to talk about that real quickly. The main draw, I said, for the Xbox One S, even though they also announced Project Scorpio, which is going to be a significantly more powerful version of the Xbox One. I said the main draw was that the Xbox One S will be able to play 4K, you know, ultra Blu-rays, right? Or Blu-ray UHDs, whatever. And it'll only be like $300, and that's a steal. There was an article on IO9 this week where it said, "Oh, 4K Blu-rays, this is only for the fans. It's not for the everyday person." And they said the reason being is because none of the 4K Blu-ray players they're like, all of them cost $600, $500, whatever crazy amounts of money. And I was like, what part of the Xbox One S did they miss? It's like, no, it doesn't just have to be for the fans. I mean, like, people, a lot of people are going to be buying an Xbox One S, I think, this coming holiday season. And then they're going to have an inexpensive, 4K Blu-ray player. I'm kind of shocked. I almost wonder if that wasn't native advertising for the PlayStation Neo and the Xbox One S to kind of shine on that, telling people, oh, well, this is only going to be, 4K Blu-rays only for enthusiasts. But then when these, new consoles come out that can play 4K Blu-rays, then they're going to see the really low price. People are going to be like, oh, whoa, no way. I thought this was only going to be for enthusiasts, but now I can do it. But I don't think so, because honestly, like, people people just, they don't have that kind of long-term memory. Everybody suffers today, or most people suffer today from short-term memory. They can't remember what they posted on Facebook 10 minutes ago. I mean that they can't, unless they get notifications from it. Believe me, I challenge most of you to tell me what you posted yesterday. Good luck. Or 2 days ago. I mean, yeah, that, you know, how important is what you said? I'm sure you thought it was important at the time, but guess what? So anyway, so it's probably not that, but I thought that was ridiculous and interesting. But, you know, speaking of a failing here on Xbox One, let's get into that. I still have tons more. They shut down, and this goes back to something we've talked about often on Sovryn Tech for years now. They shut down what's called Xbox Fitness, which used the Kinect, and they had, you know, various fitness, you know, the Kinect, which is their little camera device, whatever, will watch you. And, you know, you can go through a fitness program that it has set up, and, you know, you could buy, you buy the quote unquote game or software, and then you can buy fitness packs, you know, various exercise programs and all this. Here's the thing with this. Now they're shutting this down in the fall. Now they're not just shutting it down. You're not going to be able to play it at all. Now, do you remember what I just said 10 seconds ago? You paid for all of this software. You paid for all the exercise programs. You paid for the Xbox Fitness, whatever. Okay. What the fuck? You know, I seem to, and this is what I've complained about often, okay, is that, you know, not long ago, and still today in various cases, you'd buy a game, $50, $60, whatever. It was yours forever. You know, I mean, as long as you had the hardware to play it, you could play it into eternity. You know what I mean? And I bring up this case all the time, but it's because it's a goddamn good one. My Atari 2600 still rocks it, you know, 40 some odd years later. And I could put in any game, whatever the game, you know, whatever. I mean, I never paid that much for an Atari game, but I mean, people probably paid something close back in the day, you know, or people with an NES, you know, or a Super Nintendo, or, you know, if you have what was those Retron 5s, right, from Hyperkin or whatever. Pop in Mega Man X. The game's 30 years old. You paid $50 for it 30 years ago. You can still play it. What is wrong with consumers today? I don't get it. How are they not livid at the fact that, folks, it doesn't matter how you shape this up, how you did it. Xbox Fitness is shutting down. No matter how much money you spent on it, you will never be able to play it again. You'll never be able to use it again. It is over. It is done. In my opinion, that's bullshit. When you lay out your hard-earned money, you should be able to use it into eternity. Okay? I mean, at the very least, why can't you just store it on your hard drive and transfer it around? I mean, especially if, like we said, the Xbox One S is effectively, it's a glorified PC hooked up to a TV. It's a Windows 10 machine now. With any other Windows 10 machine, with any other Windows 7 machine or whatever, you can just do backup and restore and all this different shit. I mean, why is this not allowed? Because they have to shut down the servers. Oh, but servers are okay. Uh-huh. Yeah, cloud computing, it's okay. Up until you can't access your shit anymore that you paid good money for. Now, I mean, granted, I'm sure, let me be clear. I'm sure that Microsoft has the metrics, the statistics, as far as how many people actually used Xbox Fitness. And if it was wildly popular and they were making money off of exercise packs or whatever else, I'm sure they would keep running it. Obviously, it wasn't very popular, and it's not cost effective to keep it running. I get that. Okay. But then why not, like I said, end of lifing stuff is a part of the tech world. I know that, but why not make options available for people to continue to use it after end of lifing things? This is the importance of open source, because open source makes it so that nothing, while a company could end of life something, a consumer could carry on with it forever. That's the real importance of that. I mean, so I think this is ugly. I get it. I understand the business sense behind it, but I think that's crap. And nobody, 10, 15, 20 years ago, nobody would have put up with this. To not be able to play their game anymore, please. And this goes same for all the MMOs that have come and gone. all those life drainers. I mean, just when you end of life them, well, I talked about that 2-3 weeks ago on Game Talk on Sovryn Tech. But anyway, I just thought that was crap. But this is the name of the game today, folks. No pun intended. Okay, this is the name of the game. You are buying access. You are not actually buying a possession. You are buying access to play something, and that access can be taken away at any time. That used to not be true in the gaming world. Now it is. And it's not just going to be games. This is going to be true across the board. Movies, music, whatever. You're just buying access. If you're okay with that, some people might be okay with that. You rock and roll. The problem is when you don't have the option. That's the problem. When you don't have options, and they are options that existed not long ago. That's what gets me heated, and I think that's what gets other people pissed off too, is because they actually have a sense of history, and they know how things could be or used to be, or perhaps how they feel should be. There you go. All right. Now I want to get into the this interesting news about Amazon. Now, of course, I've been watching Amazon and talking about them as being kind of the number one tech company out there. They are the company to beat. I know so many people say, "Oh no, Google's the biggest. They're the tech giant. They're taking over the world." Or Apple's, "Oh hell Apple." I mean, just Apple is the end all be all of tech companies. Not true anymore, folks. When Microsoft lost its throne, it went to Amazon. Not to any other company. It went straight to Amazon. And I've been talking about that for years on this show. Now, finally, the rest of tech journalism is catching up and admitting that Amazon is taking over because of the Alexa. But what's interesting here is not necessarily related to Alexa. What Amazon announced is that they are going to, through, of course, their own store, which is, the most used store on the internet, they are going to be offering phones, and this will be specifically to Prime members. So again, this falls in line with the idea that, they're trying to hook everybody into kind of doing a digital version of Costco or Sam's Club, and have you pay like a retail tax by having a Prime membership. And they will sell you significantly discounted Android phones. And they're not really weak phones either. Two of them that they announced. Okay, one is the Moto G, which they're going to sell for $150. Normally, I think it sells for $200, $250, something like that. Okay, so the new Moto G, this is the latest one, and I think a specific to this deal, a phone from Blue, the Blue R1 HD, which is kind of a weaker phone. It only has a quad core and all stuff. I think Blue's a totally fine company. They're out of Miami. My daily driver right now is a Blue Vivo XL, which was $150, thanks to the lovely hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. And it works fine. I mean, this one's an the Vivo XL is an octa-core. I know a couple other people that have them too. I mean, and then it works, for $150. I mean, in fact, I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, they're checking out what kind of phone I have. Obviously, when you're a tech pundit, these kind of questions get asked of you often. And they're like, "Oh, what's the great feature about it?" I said, "Well, it's $150." And that is the great feature, right? So they are selling a relatively comparable phone to something that I use as a daily driver, the Blue R1 HD, and they are selling it for $50. Now, what's the catch? Yes, there absolutely is a catch. I knew you were waiting for it. Amazon is, of course, subsidizing these phones, I guess subsidizing might be the best word. They're subsidizing these phones, these incredible $50 or $150 for, again, the Moto G is a great phone, by the standards that consumers judge phones generally. By putting ads and software onto these phones, and you can't take them off. This is just like with their Kindle line, okay, where you can buy a cheaper version of like the Kindle Paperwhite or something, as long as you allow it to display ads, on the lock screen or whatever else. Now these ads on Android are going to show up on these Android phones. And again, these aren't Fire phones at all. This is Amazon injecting themselves onto Android in a very serious way. These ads will show up anytime you swipe down the notification screen. These ads, you will be able to remove, say, the Amazon apps from your home screen. However, You cannot uninstall these apps again unless you root the phone. I'm sure that'll happen. Blah blah blah. But for the average consumer, that's not something they even think about. Of course, I mean there's all kinds of ways where these ads are just going to constantly show up. Now you're getting a significantly cheaper device. I mean, $50, for a quad core phone. Holy shit. I mean, not that that's the only quad core phone you can get for $50. There's others, believe me. But this is I think this is going to be very intriguing to people. And this is Amazon re-strategizing. They're like, okay, our own phone didn't sell very well. Well, let's invade the entire Android ecosystem. And here's the catch is that I think some people would feel, because this has happened in other cases with Amazon, where the Amazon app had to really, both on iOS and on Android, the Amazon Store app had to significantly change some things because it was selling software through the app. That's why it got taken out of the, or it had to get repurposed to be able to be on the Google Play Store. Because, again, you could buy Amazon underground apps, or at the time it was the Amazon App Store. You could buy stuff from the Amazon App Store. So Google doesn't want you to have an app store within, which is ironic because, I mean, what the fuck's the difference between, buying an app through an app and in-app purchases? I don't see the difference. But anyway, they don't want you to be able to do that. The other problem, and it was a similar problem on iOS to where I think it was the Kindle app or something would allow you to buy books kind of directly within the app, but Apple doesn't like that because they want you to buy iBooks. Whatever. Again, owning the ecosystem, owning the app store that's what really matters, folks. Google doesn't really care about phones. Apple, at the end of the day, doesn't really care about phones. All they care about is having control of the apps. They don't care about the operating system. All they care about is controlling the apps. Controlling the app stores, I should say, because that's where the real money comes in. So now you might think that, hey, boy, this is really overstepping bounds. This is crazy for Google to allow Amazon to do this, because you're effectively turning these Android phones, which have the Google Play Store on them and everything, you are turning them into Amazon phones. I mean, they're kind of, they're insidiously becoming Fire phones. And I'm sure if this becomes popular, Amazon will release other models. Maybe they'll subsidize a Samsung phone. And who the hell, a Galaxy S8 or whatever, or the Note S7 or the Note 7, whatever. I mean, who isn't going to want to get one of those for $200? Are you kidding? Of course they would. But Google, I think, and this is a little insidious, Google, I think, will allow for this. And the reason being is because right now in the EU, Google is in some serious hot water. Just like Microsoft was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And having Amazon put their, really take over the OS quite a bit on an actual Android phone, not on a Fire phone, not on a Kindle Fire, not on a Google Android based phone, really makes it look good for Google that, oh, no, we allow other companies to, we're not controlling everything. We allow other companies to do this stuff. Now, what remains to be seen, and I haven't heard about this, is it'd be interesting too, is if Amazon actually puts their Silk browser onto these phones. Instead of having Chrome kind of be the default. And you can do that. Actually, the blue Vivo XL that I have, it has Opera as the default Android as the default web browser on there, or as an option. So I don't see Google telling Amazon no, but I also see this being very successful, just like Amazon Underground, which offers completely free apps and all this stuff. I wonder if that is going to be allowed to be pre-installed. I don't know, but that is wildly successful. And a lot of app companies, and Android gaming companies are flocking to Amazon for that. They see it really as their future and their ability to keep, making some serious cash. I see that. I'm going to guess this will be a success. I'm just tossing that out there. I'm not putting that as a hard thing, but I think this is going to be a success. Now, what it also brings up for me is a point that I bring up often and that everybody seems to miss. I find it hilarious when various quote unquote economists say, "Oh, isn't it amazing how inexpensive everything is today? Everything's so cheap. Oh, you can get this device you can get this amazing smartphone for $50, and all this stuff." And it's just like, it's not really $50. and there's the potential that all this ad tech that is, Amazon's ad tech, their ad network that they're all the software that they're installing onto your, all this crapware, frankly, that they are installing onto your Android phone that they sell for you at a low price. I mean, all of that has the potential. I mean, this is a system-wide thing that somebody could take advantage of. I consider it a potential security exploit. All of this adware that, that they're putting on it. And that's the concern, is that it's like, okay, well, I'm getting the Moto, for example, the Moto G, which is one of the two phones Amazon's offering. It's $150, but normally it's like $200, $250, something like that. Okay. You're not getting a $250 Moto G for $150. All right. You are getting a $250 Moto G for $150 that has potentially massive security exploits on it. People miss this. You are not getting the same quality device. Just like, oh, it's amazing that there's $200 computers out there now, or $150 computers, or, whatever. Yes, in one sense, that is amazing. But in the other sense, as we know with Lenovo, Dell, and other companies, these are coming similarly, like, what was that called? Not Snapfish. I can't think of it, but we talked about it many times, where Lenovo was putting various adware and ad tech onto their computers, these low price computers, and that created a major security exploit. Huge, to where your computer could effectively, get taken over completely, your laptop, whatever. Okay. So you're not, it's not like, oh, this great Lenovo. It's like, I own my own ThinkPad or anything. No, you're not getting that quality. You're getting a machine subsidized, and frankly, subsidized by security exploits. You're not, these devices are technically not $200, $150, or $50. They come at a price that may be, in my opinion, a little too high. So I don't necessarily recommend these phones because I am concerned over, the security issues with putting a system-wide, adware on it. And a whole bunch of other crap. And like I said, I talk about software minimalism all the time. I mean, all these Amazon apps that you didn't ask for to be on, I mean, that sucks. So maybe if you buy them and you root them, it's fine, of course. And maybe you can toss CyanogenMod on them. But standalone, I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. But anyway, there you go. Just stop telling people that, shirts used to be $20. Now they're only $1. Your dollar shirt sucks. Your dollar shirt is a piece of shit. Okay. And that $20 shirt from 1995, you could probably still wear, and the thing feels good. It's actually a soft t-shirt. That's a bunch of crap. God, I get so sick of that argument. Anyway. All right. What else do we have here? I told you there's too much info to jam into this episode. Okay, we got that. All right, here we go. I want to talk about. All right, this is a follow up from last week, and this is important. And I do have a lead story, which won't take long to do, but it's really, really cool. This is a follow up from last week. I talked during the climax of last week's episode. I talked about Star Trek. How Paramount and CBS have come out with guidelines for fan films. Now, this is important. This is totally relative to tech, albeit though I'm a Star Trek fan. But of course, ask anybody who's into tech and ask them what got you into it. It's a good bet you're going to hear the Star Trek as part of that answer, if not the complete answer. So anyway, we went over the fan film guidelines. They're bullshit. And a lot of people were really freaking out about them so much that the new, it's only been out for like a month, the official Star Trek podcast, and it is the official Star Trek podcast. And of course, now we know due to fan film guidelines that you can't use the word official unless you're Paramount or CBS next to the words Star Trek. Isn't that amazing that you can ban the English language? But they had Jan Von Otters, who's the VP of product development for CBS. They had him on the podcast. The podcast is called Engage. So they had him on to talk about the fan film guidelines and to explain things. Now, first off, I will say the podcast Engage, every episode up until this point, I thought was terrible. And they're only like 5-6 episodes in, admittedly. So, and it can take a while for a show to hit its stride and to get a feel for it, even though they brought in a professional to host it. But so, there shouldn't be that much lead in time to figure things out. Regardless, this episode to come and talk about the fan film guidelines, I thought was actually, even though, and I'm going to tell you about it, I thought it, because I want to update you on what happened here, because I had a lot of questions at the end of last week's episode of Sovryn Tech. Even though I thought everything that was said was largely crap, I thought this was one of the best podcasts I've ever heard in my life. Particularly, I thought this was, certainly the best Star Trek podcast, well, next to the ones that Free Thoughts did for libertarianism.org. The best Star Trek podcast I ever heard, and will probably go down as being the best episode that the show Engage will ever do. And the reason it was so great, I don't agree with anything that was said. The reason that it was so great was because this is what a podcast, if it's an official podcast of a franchise, should be. It should be the production, it should be the management, whatever, talking to the fans. Unless you're going to be, talk about the in-world stuff and continuity and all that and canon. I love talking about that. Okay. But it's great to have an episode where, you get to effectively, Moses comes down from the mountain. Okay. And that's what this episode was. Really, really good stuff. I was intrigued by it. But let's talk about this. What exactly did they get into on this? So, I mentioned last week, some of these guidelines were you can only crowdfund $50,000. The movie cannot be longer than, the fan film cannot be longer than 15 minutes. You cannot use the word official. You can't use any of the fonts for Star Trek, which that one they didn't get, effectively, if you use the name Star Trek in it, it has to be in this totally plain font. They didn't talk about that one at all. They should have, especially when some fonts are open source. Like you can get the Star Trek font, without having to pay for it because it's based off of, an open source code. There's a bunch. Anyway, those are, you can't have sex. You can't have anything, all these crazy things. And so they talked about that. And the questions were, I thought, largely a little softball. And the general gist, there's some crap here, but the general gist that was John Van Otters had to say was that when he claimed that these are just guidelines, they're not laws or rules, and they're not going to nitpick them. He was saying that if you make something that's 15 minutes, 30 seconds long, he said, don't send your fan films to Paramount or CBS, for confirmation that everything's on the up and up. He said, do it, you do it, whatever. He did say that there are specific groups that it sounded like he was saying that there were specific groups that he will be working with, or that they will be working with, that don't have to follow these rules, or these guidelines, which, whatever, make what you will of that. And they specifically mentioned, and I knew this anyway, I already talked about it. In fact, this news came out about an hour after Sovryn Tech came out last Saturday. And that was that Star Trek Renegades, which is run by a great guy, Sky Conway, nice guy. Okay. He's libertarian, anarchist, the whole thing. Renegades changed they were 2 days away from filming their second and third episodes, which I reviewed Star Trek Renegades, the movie that they made, which was really good. I reviewed it on Sovryn Tech some time back. But they were 2 days away from filming because they were trying to make a web series. And then what I noticed on whatever social media, what I noticed was that they said, they changed the name of the group to Renegades because, again, they changed it to Renegades Official when before it was Star Trek Renegades Official. Again, by these guidelines, you couldn't have the word Star Trek and official if it wasn't actually a CBS or Paramount, production. And so it's like, okay, they changed that. And then the message came down that said, we are turning Renegades into an original series. It will no longer be Star Trek. And I was like, well, then I don't fucking care. Yeah, best of luck to you. Have a good time making that show. But I watched it because I wanted to see more Star Trek. Okay. I really, I got to tell you, I don't have the time to add on more franchises in my life. I already keep track and watch and remember so goddamn many. I just just don't have the time. I don't have the time pretty much for Friends. I mean, let alone, to add on some new franchise to get excited about. I watched it because it was Star Trek. Okay. So that sucks. And they mentioned that in the episode of Engage, John Van Otter's brought it up. So that seems to be what a lot of people are doing, is they're going and just turning things into original stuff. I have not heard any word from Star Trek Continues, but if there was any group if there was any, fan film production that Paramount and CBS were working with, I would imagine it'd be that one where they would allow them to kind of, to break the rules and whatever. But anyway, so it was really, I didn't like it because John Van Otters is saying, look, these are just guidelines. These are just guidelines. You don't need to be too nitpicky and all this stuff. And I was like, no, like he's trying to play it up like they're just suggestions. No, they're not, because they effectively have the threat of the gun behind them, meaning we will take you to court. And taking you to court is effectively the threat of the gun. So these aren't just guidelines. I thought that was really shitty. And the host of Engage did not take him to task on that, and he should have. He said, well, it's like, okay, yeah, but, you can say that, oh, they're just suggestions and guidelines, but really, like if somebody goes outside of them just too far, you are threatening them with, fines or jail time, right? That should have come up, and it didn't. I thought that was crap that it didn't happen. Now, also, admittedly, like having these guidelines out there to some degree, I could see as cover your ass for Paramount and CBS. I can understand that they are trying to protect their baby. I don't agree with intellectual property. I think that's a nonsense idea, but I could see where, like, John Van Otters brought up this point where he's like, well, I have to deal with all the authors of Star Trek books and everything, official publications and all that. And there was this one time where a guy was, he was writing a novel and he had Wesley Crusher in it. Wesley as being a traveler where he has kind of these godlike powers, and he rips like the heart out of some guy. And he said, oh, no. He says, this is not going to be in your book. You can't do that. And I get that, right? Like, that's not very Wesley Crusher. I would totally agree with you, even though it'd be intriguing. That's really not very Wesley Crusher. I understand, that within their brand, they don't want that kind of thing getting out there, and they're paying the author and whatever. So, they can have that kind of control. And he brought that up, and I could see where they would be concerned, because I could see this use case where, a kid is very much into Star Trek, which good for them. So was I when I was a kid. And, even now I'm still crazy about it. Where a kid would go on YouTube, watch a Star Trek fan film, and in that fan film, some kind of crazy shit would happen. Okay. And that crazy shit would, I don't know, something like hyper violent or whatever. The kid would see it, the kid would freak out, and the parents would be like, how dare Star Trek as a franchise allow this to exist? And that she would go and sue CBS or Paramount. I could really see that happening. I'm not saying I agree with this whole paradigm in any way, shape, or form, okay? I'm just saying that I could see that happening, and I could see Paramount setting up these guidelines to be able to give them a legal framework within which to not be responsible for what happened. And they could say, oh, no, don't sue us. Sue the people that made the fan film. Okay, so I can understand they didn't bring that up in that episode, but I could kind of see that sort of cover your ass, kind of thing. They sort of hinted at that fact. Here's another part. So then they also said, though, that while you could only do $50,000, you could only crowdfund $50,000. They did explicitly say that, like, say you had a rich uncle who gave you $1 million, you could make a Star Trek fan film for $1 million if you got it from a rich uncle. Okay, as long as you didn't get it from crowdfunding. And I think that really showed what this was really all about. It's all about controlling crowdfunding, and that's what's freaking manufacturers, pretty much every industry of the 20th century is scared to shit of crowdfunding. Crowdfunding has its problems. We've talked about them. Okay. But, for some things it does, for very few things, it does work. It has had success stories out of it. And they're afraid. I mean, Hollywood's afraid of this stuff. Everybody's afraid of crowdfunding. Even though I don't consider it the best model necessarily. And so that's really where I think this came down to, is it's all about the crowdfunding. Now, that said, the one positive that they brought up, what people will see as a positive, is that now that there is a legal framework around fan films, this guy from CBS is claiming that you will be able to do crowdfunding at conventions and you will be able to legally show your fan films at conventions. That last one, Star Trek Continues, has been premiering their episodes of their, Star Trek Continues, talked about on Sovereign Tech in the past. We review every episode here. It's a show where it's like a fourth season of the original Star Trek series, and it's really, really well done, where it looks exactly, the acting's great, music's great, effects are great. It looks exactly like the 1960s show. It's fantastic. But it's a fan production. And those always show at conventions. So I don't understand where the difference is there, but I can see where people would start to get excited if they thought that they could crowdfund this sort of thing. But again, in my opinion, they more within these guidelines, they more or less said you can't show sex, you can't show anything deep and meaningful, you can't show anything like particularly, violent or whatever. So you're not going to get into the depths of the human condition, which is the beauty of what Star Trek can do. Like, honestly, Kirk having a threesome in Into Darkness, right on. But I can see people getting excited about that. But now here's where it got really crazy. Again, there was the total bullshit over the fact that he's saying, oh, these are just guidelines. We're not nitpicking. We're not coming after you and all this stuff. And they said they won't go after anybody retroactively. But again, they are threatening with the gun, right? Here's what gets nuts is that and this just shows like how weaselly and how carefully worded everything that they said was. He said, John Van Otters, he said that Star Wars, he was talking about Star Wars fan films. He says, you don't understand. He says, these rules are less strict than the rules for Star Wars fan films for their award show. Really, really particular on that. For their award show. This is the thing. There are, it was Adam Films or whatever. There is like an official Star Wars fan film like contest. Okay, that is held, I think, every year. And these fan films have very specific rules that they have to follow. And generally, these fan films suck because these rules are accurately very strict. John Van Otters is right. Those are very strict. And so you end up usually with comedies and just dumbass shit from Star Wars. I can't stand any of them. However, outside of the guidelines for being accepted and potentially winning that award show, you can make whatever you want of whatever length, of whatever, scale, or whatever amount of money. I mean, the crowdsourcing thing might be kind of new with it, but point being is that Lucasfilm, of course now Disney, has never gone after anybody for making, really risque or violent or whatever Star Wars fan films. Really long ones, really high production ones. Using professional teams or whatever. They've never gone after people for that. Yes, he's right that within the, fan film awards within Star Wars, the rules are stricter than what Paramount and CBS laid down for all Star Trek fan films. Not ones for an award show, but all across the board. But not for Star Wars fan films in general. Star Wars fan films in general can do whatever the fuck they want. And there hasn't, as I understand it, there's never been a case brought against them. And some of them are great. One of my favorites, Broken Allegiance. It's from like 20 years ago. Or I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that, by Nick Hallam. I love this. I keep it in I have a folder, with all the Star Wars canon effectively in it. And I keep that movie in it because it's so goddamn good. I love it. Star Wars Broken Allegiance, if you ever want to check it out. And there's others that are just super high quality and great. There was that new Darth Maul one that was really good and all this. Nobody ever goes after anybody for making these really high-end, great productions that are certainly longer than 15 minutes and obviously cost more than $50,000, or at least in some cases. That was really, want to talk about insidious. That was insidious. That was crap. He was very carefully worded, just a ton of shit. Bottom line being with all of this, okay, is that, well, obviously bottom line is that CBS and Paramount are full of crap. But the bottom line is that Hollywood, every industry is terrified of what you can do with the computer today. They're terrified. And they're terrified of even of what you can do with a smartphone. They're terrified of what you can do with these cheap cameras. They're scared. And fine, I can't wait. That real disruption needs to happen in the artistic space, in my opinion. And it's happening. People are trying to control it, with YouTube being the central hub that everybody has to rely on, generally. And there's others, but they're not exactly contenders. I'm sure we'd all agree on that. you know, and all the, I mean, they're afraid, but real disruption needs to happen there. There is no risk capital in that industry because I think, I talked about this maybe about a month ago on Sovereign Tech, where I said there's no risk capital in the entertainment industry. I think the reason there's no risk capital is because they are afraid of, funding independent studios outside of, the big four or however many in Hollywood. And that those studios are going to create better shit. And, the traditional Hollywood studios are going to lose complete control and their monopoly on making movies. I mean, in many ways they already have, but they're terrified of it. And it is all about, real democratization of technology, the ability to, yeah. That's why it took me a while to get to that conclusion, but I think that is the real reason why there's no risk capital. And risk capital means taking a chance on new franchises and all of this. This is another reason why I think perhaps people are relying on old franchises because they have total control of those franchises. Anyway. And they're going to keep tightening control on that because they want to keep people hooked on these things. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm a franchise boy. I mean, I love my franchises in entertainment, believe me. But that's a real space that needs to be disrupted is art in general. It's kind of already happened, but I think on a grander scale, we really need to see that. So, okay, what else do we have here? All right, how about we get into our lead story again? This one won't take long, but this is good news. This is genuinely very, very good news. I think this is really cool. This is an awesome development. It seems so rare that I can get excited about a new technology, but this is one of them. And what it is, in fact, a great Sovereign Tech listener, I saw Steve Gibson, of course, of Security Now fame, and a personal hero of mine. I saw him share this. But then a great listener of Sovereign Tech also made sure that I saw this because he saw the relevance to what I talk about on the show oftentimes. And what this is, tell you what, how about it's called TipTalk. And how about I just play a little bit of the audio for you so you can understand what it is.
We make calls every day. In a noisy subway, in a car with a person, and our voices are transmitted through speakers. The problem is, anyone can hear the transmitted sound. Users of smartwatches make calls on speakerphone, meaning they have almost no privacy. Your phone rings, shattering the silence. But it's deep inside your bag, and you frantically fumble through your belongings. Then how can we solve the aforementioned problems? Finally, we found the answer, taking cues from vibration. TipTalk is a new UX. It's a product of watch strap type, so you can change the strap with any existing watch. Of course, you can also accessorize with it as a band. The smart strap has Bluetooth and BCU vibrator inside. When you receive a call, your smartphone sends a signal to TipTalk via Bluetooth. TipTalk vibrates the BCU, and it transmits sounds through fingertips, not through the air. Users touch their ears with their fingertips and hear the sound. TipTalk can read your messages in private and manage your health by counting your steps. When you want to talk regardless of time, space, and occasion, TipTalk.
Okay, so that's TipTalk. What this is, and I want you to picture this. I'll put a link to the video video you can see that I just played the audio from in the show notes for this episode. But do you know how people use a hand signal to say, call me, where, it's kind of like the surf's up symbol, right? And there's like a thumb up to your ear and then, your pinky finger to your mouth. This is kind of the gist, is that this is a watch band that you put on whatever watch you have. It doesn't even have to be a smartwatch, really. Oh, well, no, correction. I'm sorry. Yes. I believe it needs to be a smartwatch. I don't think it's going to transmit the audio via Bluetooth. Maybe it is. But I think it has to be a smartwatch for the microphone to work, because, smartwatches have built-in microphones. I I cannot imagine that they could somehow set it up so that you could actually use your pinky finger, right? But anyway, the idea is you would take your index finger in particular, put it up to your ear, and then through vibration, through this watch band, you can actually hear, say, a text message getting read, or you could accept a phone call. You can do all kinds of things and have it be very private. Now, they're kind of ignoring the fact that with a smartwatch, you could have a Bluetooth earpiece or headset that can interact with your smartwatch, again, via Bluetooth. And then you could have privacy with a phone call if you wanted to do that. Or you could also have your notifications read to you, without having to look at your watch, whatever. Okay, so they kind of ignored that fact. But I agree, I'm not... I mean, that's a way to do things. The reason that this came up was because I am very bullish on smartwatches. I think smartwatches are going to replace the smartphone, and I can't wait for it to do so. I really, really can't. And I think this is a really cool idea. This is a really neat technology. Is you just hold up, you hold up your index finger to your ear, and then you can hear through the vibrations, through the band, through your hand. And then, obviously your watch will be right up to your mouth at that point because it's on your forearm, and you could just talk into the microphone on the watch. It's brilliant. It's a new UX, new user experience. Hell yeah, it is. And it's a great one. Nice job. It's kind of like it's almost like bone induction. I know a lot of people remember when Google Glass came out, which I hate Google Glass, at least as a consumer product. In the professional space, I think it's great. I totally understand it. But with that had for speakers, it used bone induction where it would vibrate your cheekbones and all that. This is kind of the same idea. And understand bone induction's been around it's been around since the 70s. My dad used to tell me about bone induction speakers, or headphones and all that. Like you just wear them around your neck. So very, very old. These aren't really like new ideas. This is definitely a new way of setting it up. I think it's great that it's really not proprietary. All it is a watch band that can accept any watch. Now, I could see TipTalk coming out with their, own branded smartwatch or whatever, and that's fine. Go ahead. But this could potentially work with Pebble watches. This could work with Apple Watch, Android Wear, whatever, or if there's an Android OS watch in the future, it could work with all of those. I saw this and thank you to the Sovereign Tech listener for bringing it to making sure I saw it. Because this falls right. First off, it's great technology. It's a great fucking idea. But second off, it falls in line with exactly what I want. Is that when I'm on the go, when I want to get something done, when I'm doing something serious, fine, give me my laptop. Okay, smartphone's just not going to cut it. I've tried for years. It doesn't cut it. All right, give me my laptop. And when I'm on the go and I want to get notifications, or even if I want to send a simple text to somebody or a message or whatever, or if I want to, flip through an email or something, or see the weather, blah, 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 or even use GPS, or I want to take a phone call, put it all through my smartphone or through my smartwatch. I don't need a smartphone to do all that stuff. And you really don't. You see some of these clever keyboards that get out there, or if you're a big guy like me, you can wear an awfully large watch that will give you, a keyboard that you can kind of effectively use on that. I mean, great. And, or be able to speak into something and hear the confirmation through a vibration from your finger and all. I mean, there's a lot of very, very, it just, vibrates. It lets you know there's something there. You put your fingertip up to your ear and there you go. Awesome idea. I could imagine all kinds of great solutions for this. And it is a deliciously private technology. It goes, the vibration goes right through. And I mean, yeah, I suppose there's probably a way that somebody could listen in, just like how you could listen to, PGP keys at one point, just through a cell phone speaker, and you could tell just by the, sound of the keyboard, blah, 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 all that stuff. I'm sure there's still a way to listen in on a conversation with this if a state actor really, really tried. But in general, this works. So let it never be said that the Golden Stallion hates all new technology. No, I do not. All right, I don't at all. This is one that I am totally on board with. Please replace my smartphone. Maybe this could even work with the smartphone to some degree. I don't know. Or maybe TipTalk could put a microphone into the band as well. I'd prefer that they did not. I'd like it to be a one-way street, but I could understand where putting a microphone into the band as well could be a thing. Anyway, Nice work. Videos in the show notes. Check it out for episode 182. I'll be back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo! Exciting. Hey, talking about exciting. I want you to get your hands, talk about some ancient tech, or should I say some ancient cold storage. Cold storage of your wealth. Cold storage, perhaps, of your money, your investments. And you get that by getting gold and silver. Okay, now, don't misunderstand me. I love cryptocurrencies. I love all this stuff. But guess what? The company I want you to go to get gold and silver, they love cryptocurrencies too. They love Bitcoin. They prefer Bitcoin more than any other payment type. This is Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. I want you to check them out. Go to gold.zog.ninja or rrbi.co. Let them know that the Golden Stallion sent you, okay? Believe me, these are great people. This is one of the best companies on the planet. They've got what you're looking for. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium, coins, all different styles, all different kinds. Get your hands on this stuff. Some of the fastest shipping you know what? It is the fastest shipping I've ever experienced in my life. I know someone that made an order it was like 5 p.m. at night, and the following morning, and this is across the U.S., like literally this was shipped across the U.S. They're based out of Florida. And it showed up there the next morning at like 10 a.m. It was remarkable. Okay. No guarantee that that's going to happen every time, but this is a company that cares about you. We talk about consumer friendliness. Nobody does it better, in my opinion, when it comes to precious metals than Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. Go to gold.zog.ninja or rrbi.co. Let's get back to Sovryn Tech. Pixel, I'm being chased by assassin bots. I need an exit. Pixel!
Boy and Sovryn, come with me if you want to leave.
Who are you?
I'm Adelaide. I'll tell you more later. Get in the vehicle.
Get in a car with a scantily clad and beautiful woman? Guess it's been my first choice before. Let's go.
First choice.
It is time for First Choice, where I cover the stories that get sent in to me through the various channels available. I did have a story I was going to talk about. I'll mention it anyway, but then I want to dovetail off of it. And this is Facebook is using your phone's location to suggest new friends, which could be a privacy disaster. And I'll start reading this, but I have something, it's Facebook related, but completely different that I want to talk about and someone asked me to talk about. And this is coming from fusion.net, and of course written by Kashmir Hill, who she is really great on privacy, and she's fully aware. And I don't consider her part. I mean, she's not really part of she's not a liberty-oriented person, but she definitely understands the liberty-oriented people, and she's written about them before, and it wasn't too bad. But anyway. Let's read this here. Facebook's ability to discern with creepy accuracy the people we may know, quote unquote, has surprised, delighted, and horrified its users for years. While the magic sauce behind friend suggestions, and that's what this is about, it's like, when you see it in the app or on the website, it says, it'll say suggested by, or people you may know, all that stuff. And there's like people you can try and friend. It now includes some potentially unsettling information, this feature. Thanks to tracking the location of users' smartphones, the social network may suggest you friend people you shared a GPS data point with, meaning your friend suggestions could include someone whose face you know, but whose name you didn't until Facebook offered it up to you. Last week, I met a man who suspected Facebook had tracked his location to figure out who he was meeting with. He was a dad who had recently attended a gathering for suicidal teens. The next morning, he told me, he opened Facebook to find that one of the anonymous parents at the gathering popped up as a quote-unquote person you may know. The two parents hadn't exchanged contact information. One way Facebook suggests friends is to look at your phone contacts. The only connection the two appeared to have was being in the same place at the same time, and thus their smartphones being in the same room. The man immediately checked the privacy settings on his phone and saw that Facebook, quote-unquote, always had access to his location. He immediately changed it to, quote-unquote, never. He also did not want to reveal his identity for this story. It turns out his suspicions were correct. Quote, People you may know are people on Facebook that you might know, end quote, a Facebook spokesperson said. So this is what Facebook said. A spokesperson at Facebook said, our people, we'll keep reading, quote, we show you people based on mutual friends, work and education information, networks you're part of, contacts you've imported, and here's the key, many other factors, end quote. One of these factors is smartphone location. One of these many other factors that the person from Facebook said. A Facebook spokesperson said that through shared location alone, though that shared location alone would not result in a friend suggestion, saying that the two parents must have had something else in common, such as overlapping networks. Quote, location information by itself doesn't indicate that two people might be friends, end quote, said the Facebook spokesperson. That's why location is only one of the factors we use to suggest people you may know, end quote. Facebook has gotten more aggressive in its use of smartphone location data in the last year, tracking which stores you go to in order to tell advertisers if their online ads worked and letting advertisers use your phone's location to geo-target you with ads. But until now, most people didn't realize that Facebook was also tracking their phone's location to suggest friends to them. The implications of this are far-reaching. There are situations in which this could be incredibly useful. It means you could finally become friends, Facebook friends with quote-unquote Karen from yoga class, or if you meet awesome new people at a party but forget to exchange numbers, last names, or Snapchat handles. Facebook could make new friends happen by surfacing those partygoers to you. Great! Those are best-case scenarios. And before I get into obviously, it's coming, the bad ones. Again, let's make this clear. So location alone is not enough. But if in any other of those factors, you match up with somebody that is within the location of your phone, that is within, the GPS, and it probably uses maybe like Wi-Fi Direct or Bluetooth, depending if all that's on, to do it as well. I cannot confirm that. I'm guessing. But certainly GPS seems to get used. And it matches just one other factor, that person could become a suggestion. Okay. So it's the potential, the possibilities are endless. Bottom line, even if they don't only use location. But now, let's read on here. But there are plenty of scenarios in which Facebook casually connecting you with people because your phones were in the same place at the same time could end disastrously. Imagine going to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and then getting a friend suggestions the next day for members of the group, along with their full names and profile information. Or getting hit on at the bar by a guy that gives you the creeps, giving him the cold shoulder and no information about yourself, but later getting a friend request from him. And that's totally possible, folks, because again, all you need is like maybe one other metric. What if, say at the bar, you both like the page for the bar, because if you liked the page, they'd give you a free beer or something, right? Well, location information and you both like the page, that's enough to create a friend suggestion. Or here's another one, reading on, or visiting an abortion clinic and discovering that one of the abortion protesters outside was offered up your identity by Facebook. Last year, Motherboard asked how Facebook was figuring out who people were going out on Tinder dates with. The report was ultimately inconclusive, as experts said that data from Tinder doesn't flow back to Facebook, but it may well have been location-based. Quote, using location data this way is dangerous, end quote, said Woodrow Hartzog, a law professor at Samford University via email. Quote, people need to keep their visits to places like doctor's offices, rehab, and support centers discreet. Once Facebook users realize that the, quote, people you may know, end quote, and the, quote, people that go to the same places you do, end quote, this feature will inevitably start outing people's intimate information without their knowledge, end quote. Most Facebook users who have the app on their phone with location access granted likely don't realize this could happen. It's not mentioned on Facebook's help page about how, people you may know works. Quote, this is the kind of thing that people should be given explicit and multiple warnings about, end quote, said Hartzog. Quote, they should also be asked to affirmatively turn on the feature before their whereabouts are used to get them friends. Geolocation data is far more sensitive than most of the kinds of information people probably assume are used to suggest friends, such as alma mater and mutual friends, end quote. For now, if it's troubling to you, the way you can prevent it is to turn off Facebook's access to your location. It's in your phone's privacy settings. Now, of course, in the end, ultimately, that setting, you turn it off via software switch, not a hardware switch. And so is it really turned off? Is Facebook really not doing it anymore? right. Okay. You're going to have to trust Facebook on that one. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. Now, there was a rebuttal to this, and there's an update, and I put a bunch of links in the show notes where you can read more, because this story kept getting good. Because at first, Facebook admitted that this was possible. Then it sounds like Facebook changed their mind. Here's an update from June 28th. Of course, we're on July 2nd here. After twice confirming it used location to suggest new friends, Facebook now says it doesn't currently use, quote unquote, location data, such as device location and location information you add to your profile to suggest people you may know, end quote. The company says it ran a brief test using location last year. And there's more stories about this. So once again, okay, Facebook did a test on you and you didn't know it. And they did test this out. So this was a feature at one point, but now they're saying, even though a spokesperson originally said, oh yeah, we did that, but now a spokesperson is saying, oh no, we don't do that. I mean, what do you believe? I mean, don't trust Facebook for a second, of course. And I know a lot of people will say kind of the ultimate answer here. Well, all right, let me backpedal. One of the easy ways, I know there are people who don't give a shit about their privacy. That's so nice. How wonderful for you. You must lead a very boring life. Okay. Sorry. I can be a little crass sometimes. Okay. You don't care about your privacy. Fine. However, that does not mean that there aren't best practices that these companies could engage in. One of which was suggested here is that these privacy encroaching features should be turned off by default. Not turned on by default, or should come up as a pop-up with a recommendation explaining what's going on. I agree. People are dumb and they won't go flipping through the features, so they might not turn on something that perhaps is very helpful to them and is key to your business model or something like that. I understand that. Okay. But then could we perhaps err on the side of caution? Okay. And, not infringe on people's liberties, or, especially when they may not be so privacy conscious that they realize they could really fuck something up, or create a real situation, or perhaps, some dumbass, guy at a bar, could do something crazy, and by getting somebody's information that wasn't meant to be shared. The easy answer here, right, is, some people would say, well, don't use Facebook. Absolutely. I agree. That is the easy answer. And that's the answer I wish everybody would kind of go with, right? Okay. But that's not going to happen. Also, the other easy answer that some people might think of is just use the mobile website. Don't install the actual Facebook app, or maybe use the Facebook Lite app. Yeah, that might work. That something like that might work. And I recommend doing that anyway, especially if you're just the kind of person to only use notifications. But I don't trust the fact that that's still location data from the web browser, unless you're using Firefox and you're tricking it out on your Android phone or something, that location data still isn't going to get shared, especially with iOS, where Facebook is really, really integrated into the operating system. It really is. So, or at least it has the potential to be. So I don't think there's a very good answer to this. And this is really, really concerning. And obviously Facebook's doublespeak is a major problem here. And they are engaging it. I mean, they're changing their story right and left. What does all this really come down to? Well, it comes down to that people don't understand Facebook. They don't understand what it does, what they're doing on it, and what their data gets used for on it. And to prove the point, I'm going to share a recent Facebook experience that I had. Let's get into it. And before anyone asks, yes, I have a Facebook account. There's varying reasons for that, which I won't get into. But hey, the more people leave, the less I have to use it. So, and maybe I can convince others that, to stop. Anyway, generally I only share geeky shit. And this is a case here where I was talking about Lost in Space, and I shared a story from IO9, and they were talking about, on IO9, they were talking about a reboot that Netflix is going to be rebooting the show Lost in Space. Now, I'm a huge fan. I got to make this really clear. I am a huge fan of Lost in Space. The original show, I loved the 98 movie. I thought was really cool. I even liked the 2004 reboot that was done, that John Woo directed, of all things. All great stuff. Okay. So, and this is from just a few days ago that I did this. And, in the article, let me read what I said on Facebook, and then we're going to break this down. Okay, so here I am going to narrate for you. We're going to do some Facebook theater right here, okay? This is me. No. Fucking hold on. What the fuck is going on here? Okay, this is all in quotes. I've been explicitly told, even by other quote-unquote nerds, that this show was rubbish. How the hell, talking about Lost in Space, how the hell can anyone let Cindy Holland, the VP of Original Programming at Netflix, make a statement like this about Lost in Space? Quote, the original series so deftly captured both drama and comedy, and that made it very appealing to a broad audience. The current creative team's reimagining of the series for Netflix is sure to appeal to both fans who fondly remember the original and to create a new generation of enthusiasts around the world. End quote. What? Look, I love Lost in Space. I'm still reading my post. I love Lost in Space. I even like both 90s remakes. Yep, there were 2 of them. Bet you didn't know that, slap nuts. Of course, I was wrong about it being 90s. One of them is in 2004. But anyway, I don't mind this notion of remakes reading on, though I do recommend reading the new comics, which I've talked about on Sovryn Tech before. Anyway, but fucking come on. How is no one jumping up and down screaming, quote, no, this show sucks, end quote, like I was told in the 90s and aughts? Maybe it's because dumbass younger folk today have absolutely no sense of history, so they just gravitate to anything that has some kind of historicity to it so that they can finally feel something real, but if it's not updated or remade, they think it's shit because it's old. God damn it, I hate the web with all my heart. It is a gathering place of listless buffoons. Okay, so that was my post, and then I shared the IO9 article underneath this. Now, my point here, before I explain what happened, because it's very interesting what happened. I actually got quite a laugh out of the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. My point here was that, not that I don't like Lost in Space. I'm not against, and I made it clear in the post, I'm not against, Netflix doing a remake and all this stuff. My point was, and I've mentioned this for quite a few different franchises, is that I've been told my whole life that show sucks. I've read articles, and I could link to them, from IO9 themselves, where they said that the show is terrible. And yet they do this, what is really just native advertising for Netflix, saying, oh, we've got this new show coming out, because Cindy Holland said, oh, it was this. And that's the other thing too. I've never, ever, ever heard anybody say that Lost in Space captured both drama and comedy deftly. I've never heard anybody describe it that way. The show is camp. It's cheese. That's why it's good. It doesn't capture drama for anything. And sometimes the comedy is even too over the top for me. So, I mean, Cindy Holland's full of crap. And IO9 didn't call her out. IO9 didn't come out and say, well, even though we said that Lost in Space sucks, and they could have solved this whole problem. If IO9 said in their article, if they said, yeah, Lost in Space, we know Lost in Space sucks, but hey, maybe this remake will be all right. That's all they'd have to say. But that's what pissed me off. And even underneath in the comments to this, nobody was coming out and saying that, oh, what a terrible show. Everybody was just all excited. And it's like, wait a minute. I've been hearing my whole life that this show is terrible. Unless by, some other very rare science fiction fans that also appreciate it for what it is. So anyway, suddenly, after I make this post, I get a ton I get some likes, which cool. I'm glad I got some likes. But then I also got, I started getting comments from people that I am not friends with. Now, granted, my Facebook account is public. It's all out in the open. Okay. I have I know that there is no privacy when I'm using Facebook. And so I don't, generally share any kind of private or, information that I wouldn't want the world seeing, blah, blah, blah. I usually will just share a show or something like that, or have to interact with a business partner or something. But, but anyway, suddenly all these people just start commenting on it. And I'm like, who the fuck are these people? And I have no mutual friends. They're not anarchists or liberty people or anything like that. And so I'll start reading some of their responses. So we're getting some, this is from, again, this is all public. So I assume, so I will read their names, or at least I'll read their first name. Here's from John B here. To quote Dr. Smith, oh, the pain. And anybody that's watched Lost in Space remembers, Dr. Smith saying that. Here's one from Linus. I wonder who will play the menacing boy-hungry pedophile Dr. Smith in the remake. Pee Wee Herman gets my vote. That was kind of funny. It wasn't, here's another one from Priest Williamson. It wasn't horrible. It served its purpose for its time. Jim Ruthier, see, now I'm not just using their first names. Whatever, you're on Facebook, and somehow this all got public. Wine much? Dustin, he has a legitimate point. I know the young people he talks about. And then there was someone else who, what are you talking about, that there were 2 remakes? And exactly, that's kind of my whole point, is nobody has any clue about fucking history. They can't remember shit. Yes, there were 2 remakes. But anyway, let's see. There's a bunch of other ones. Here's one from Jody, someone named Jody. Brian Sovryn, why are you such a troll? You're mean. And there's a bunch of these other ones, and a whole slew of people like on this saying, it's like, stop trolling this page, stop trolling Iona. And I have more I want to talk about here. Okay. But this is what amazed me in this whole thing, was that, wait a second. I don't think people realized that I was not that I wasn't the writer of the article. I don't think they realized that I wasn't posting on the IO9 page itself. Like, and I'll tell you something, I'm saying, like, the main problem, we're talking about the privacy issue with Facebook earlier with the location thing here. Okay. That's how this relates. I don't even know how this story got shared to all of these people who I have no fucking idea who they are. Like that, and it's public. I know that. I know that's how it got shared. But how did it end up on their radar? I have no idea. And it ended in hilarity, because I mean, these people, they have no, like, all right. So here's another one. This is in reference. Well, all right. So this is from Jerry. Quote, "God damn it, I hate the web with all my heart. It is a gathering place of listless buffoons." End quote. Okay. so that's a quote from my original post. And my point in saying that is that, like, it is just what I'm saying here, is that with the internet, it seems like nobody has any like actual knowledge or long-term storage of knowledge in their brains. Okay. And they don't remember that IO9 ripped on Lost in Space regularly up until maybe even like 2 weeks ago. And now they're giving it glowing praise because, oh yes, or they're not taking Cindy Holland to task for claiming that the show somehow was dramatic and was deft with dramatic and comedy. Anyway, here's from Jerry. So he references that statement. He says, "And yet here you are trolling websites and posting opinions? Sounds a bit hypocritical to me." I replied, "The only hypocrites here are IO9. They rip on these old shows right and left, and yet they are soaking up Netflix's doublespeak because this is native advertising for Netflix itself. If the writer said, quote, 'I can't agree with Netflix, the show sucks as we've said in the past,' end quote, I wouldn't have had a problem with this write-up at all. And then I go on, other than I disagree with them that, Lost in Space sucks." And then Jerry responds, "I'm not saying that the original was a great masterpiece or anything. It was campy, even for those times. My point is, if he hates the web so much, why does he come on here?" Jerry doesn't understand. I'm the guy that said that. I'm baffled at this. Okay, at this response from Jerry. And I have more here. And so then I respond to Jerry. I said, "Why do people go to church whenever religion is a scam? It's where their friends are." And then Jerry responds, "So your friends are listless buffoons?" Then I respond. And my response, let's see. I said, so he says, "You're saying your friends are listless buffoons?" I said, "When did I say it was all listless buffoons? I said it was a gathering place for listless buffoons. Also, I can't write a book on my context for hating the web, which is different from the internet's infrastructure itself, which I don't mind, on every post that I make. My friends and people that listen to my show, Sovereign Tech, get my point." And this is the thing, is that, like, where do these people come from? How do they even get involved? And who the fuck do they think they are getting involved on this post? People don't understand. They have no clue how all of this shit works, how Facebook works. Like, would you jump on just anybody's post that they shared about a story and start commenting on it and talking about it? Isn't that kind of weird? Like, isn't Facebook about connecting with friends? Like, I think this is so odd. This kind of stuff has happened before, but I think people have no idea what they're seeing or what's going on. Here's another one. This is hilarious. This is from a guy, Tim. This guy is stupid. He's talking about me. It doesn't appear that they realize. Everybody's claiming that I'm trolling on Facebook. I'm posting it on my wall. Can't I just post shit on my timeline? Like, What do you mean I can't troll things on my timeline? It seems like it looks like they're thinking that I'm posting this on IO9's page or something. Very, very, this is really, really weird. People are so confused. This guy is stupid. As if I can't see it, as if I'm not it's not my post. What the fuck? Anyway, reading on, Tim, this guy is stupid. For its time, it was not that bad, especially at first. It was hokey, yeah, so was every other sci-fi back then, to some degree or another. The idea is to take the basic idea and make it new and better. Stop whining about how stupid the original show is. Why not wait till it comes out before you make a judgment? I responded, you didn't read my whole comment, dipshit. I said I loved the show. And as I read the comment to you listeners earlier, you know that. I said, I love Lost in Space, and I didn't edit it. All right. And then I commented again, and I also said that I'm game for the remakes. How about you click, quote unquote, see more before you make a judgment? And I think that's exactly what happened. This guy, Tim, did not click see more to see the rest of the post. He just saw me look like I was ripping on it or something and didn't move on. People don't understand how any of this shit works. Tim responds, I read the whole thing, bud. Maybe you should read it yourself because the way you talk, it's the worst idea ever. That's what I got out of it. I responded and I quoted myself, quote, and I don't mind this notion of a remake, end quote. Pretty sure that's plain English, I responded. I mean, what happened? There's one guy underneath it here. It says, I agree 120%, Brian. You couldn't said it better yourself. Diehard fan here. So some people did understand what I was saying. And there was plenty of people who clicked like and said that they agreed with it and they got it. But people thought I was saying that I hated it. Clearly, they didn't read the whole thing. Bottom line is, nobody knows how Facebook works. I am even mystified at how this showed up and how all of these morons started commenting on it. And also, they obviously don't know how to use Facebook. They don't understand what they were seeing because based upon the way that they were responding. I mean, the algorithms on Facebook are nuts. I mean, and again, this has happened with other things where I post something and I mean, that's part of the reason I have it public is to maybe, get some reach on it and all this stuff because I have some plans for some more geeky stuff, not Sovereign Tech related. And so maybe part of this would build that out. I don't know. Okay. But it seems to work, but what the fuck? I don't mean to. So a long time ago on Sovereign Tech, and again, we've been doing this for about 4 years. I used to not say, or I used to not agree with the idea that, that most people are morons or, that people are stupid or something like this. And granted, I understand that Facebook does make things pretty confusing. So it's not exactly fair for me to say, that people are stupid based upon what the reactions to my post about Lost in Space, which again, I look forward to seeing the 10 episode. It's going to come out in 2018. It's going to be 10 episodes. If they do as good a job as they did with Voltron, I'm there. I'm ready for some more Lost in Space. Okay. I already know the franchise. I don't have to add on another franchise. Like I said earlier, this one I'm already well baked into. But look, I'm just going to say it. The bulk of people are idiots. There's varying degrees in there, like Starbucks Red Cup. I don't think Christians are that stupid, to fall for that kind of, to like somehow think that that's actually a thing, like that their Starbucks worship Satan or something. But, in pretty much every way, I mean, they're just, they can't, I mean, I've said this with Microsoft's Tay, people are not ready for technology. They are not ready for technology. Maybe me calling them idiots isn't the best thing to say. Okay. But they are not ready for this. Obviously. It's plain as day. And I mean, I was laughing more than anything. I mean, to some degree, I'll admit I was a little angry because I'm like, what are you people not getting what I'm saying? It's pretty clear. I said, I like the idea of a remake. And I said that I loved Lost in Space. And you're saying I have no idea. And then the whole notion that, oh, you're using the web, but you're complaining about how stupid is that, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah. Right. And libertarians love Edward Snowden, they're pro-privacy, but they're using Facebook to organize their events. Right. Okay. Let's not that these people were libertarians either. So, but that's the problem is that you cannot, I mean, the social, it also shows how dumb social media is. I could not potentially explain to somebody that when I use the phrase World Wide Web, I am talking about a very specific aspect of of the internet itself, because the internet is not just the World Wide Web. It is email. It's SMTP. It's Usenet. It's IRC. Those are not part of the World Wide Web. They are not the same thing as web pages. They do not. They're all on the internet, but it's different stuff. It's different aspects. But when you post something, to keep these dipshits from getting involved, you got to do this long, drawn out, explanation. Oh, fucking A. It's like I got to write a book or something, but I don't expect to, a part of me doesn't want to, because, well, that's another story. Yes. Facebook makes it confusing, no doubt about it, but the bulk of people out there, they are the dum-dums. They really are the dum-dums, and I'm not going to put a fine point on it or try and spin it. Not that I spin things, or try and shape it any other way. People are stupid. There it is. And Facebook is your watering hole. I'll be back with more. Oh, hey. Well, another live read. What I want to tell you about real quick is that if you are, I announced this a while back, and I just want to let people know about this. If you are concerned about your cybersecurity situation, we talk about all of these privacy. We talk about something as simple as Facebook location data being used against you in all of this. Okay, if you are an individual, an organization, small business, an activist, something like that, put me to work for you. Head over to solutions.zog.ninja, okay? Sovryn Tech Solutions, that's my cybersecurity consultancy. I would love to help you out. And I love focusing on the individual more than some crazy big company, okay? But I'd help you out too if you are. So anyway, get in touch with me. Just head over to solutions.zog.ninja, okay? And there's a contact form there. Anyway, let's get back to Sovryn Tech. And please do. I'm ready to help you out. Sovryn Tech Solutions. Here we go. Whoa, hey, you want to slow down?
I don't do slow. I move fast.
Okay, well, so you're French.
Everyone in the future speaks French.
Wait. The future?
From 2099. Permanent Autonomous Zone, Osiris-1. You've been there.
Oh, this isn't happening. It only thinks it's happening. How do I know you're from Osiris-1?
RGP fingerprint Omega 746566666.
Okay, you're legit. Hey, really, be careful. You drive like you're playing a video game.
That is how you programmed me. Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk. And folks, please, just don't be one of the dum-dums. I can't get over that post. That there was just, and I only read a couple of the responses on there. It was mind numbing, to see that people had no idea what they were looking at. And it's just a terrible communication medium. Anyway, let's get into a little bit of Game Talk. I'm going to kind of shorten this one up a little bit, but what I want to talk about, speaking of dum-dums, I want to talk about video game movies. Because this is really becoming a thing, and it's actually it dovetails nicely off of what we were just talking about with the Lost in Space remake and my point on that. In the past 2 months, there has been announcements for there is going to be a Tetris movie. No, I'm sorry. Not just a Tetris movie. I know, that should stop you in your tracks. There's going to be a trilogy of Tetris films. What the fuck are you going to make those about? Now, if it was about like a Tetris contest, I've already seen the documentary about that. But if it was like, some kind of like a Tetris tournament or something, that could be really exciting. But it's not. This is going to be like somehow a Tetris sci-fi movie. There's going to be a Missile Command film. There are other films that there's a whole slew. There was already an Angry Birds movie. There's a whole slew of these, films coming out based upon video games. Now, historically, video game movies have a pretty rough track record. I don't think they're all as bad as some say. Everybody keeps saying that there is no great video game movie. I disagree with that. I have a point I want to get to. I disagree with that. I think the original Mortal Kombat film from 95 by Paul W.S. Anderson, who's one of my favorite directors of all time, in my top 3. I think that movie is amazing. That is a genuinely great film, especially for what it is. Way better than it ever needed to be. I think the Resident Evil movies, even though they are very different from the video games, so that might not want to exactly count, also by Paul W.S. Anderson, are great movies. Every single one of them are great. I can't wait for the next one coming out in 2017. And the last one, as I understand it, from Paul W.S. Anderson. I actually enjoyed, and people are going to laugh at this one, I enjoyed Jean-Claude Van Damme's Street Fighter. I thought that was really good. It was fun. Okay. But the list of movies, of video game movies there's going to be a Minecraft movie coming out in 2019. I could picture ways that perhaps these could be done well. Okay. Maybe where they're done something like, what was it? The Wizard from 1989. Everybody remember that one with Fred Savage, which was basically an infomercial for Super Mario Brothers 3, but I thought it was actually a fair film, and it was an infomercial for the Power Glove too, which is great. But I had one. Why are they doing this? Like what was that movie, Battleship, that was based around the board game? I mean, it had nothing to do with like the board game really at all. Crazy. Like what is the mindset around creating these in the first place? And here's what I want to tell you what this is about. I think all these, there's the oddball chance that one of these could somehow be really good, but it would have nothing to do with the game that it was based on if there was a reason that was really good. Okay, why? Like Missile Command? I love the game Missile Command. It is one of the greats. It's one of those games that you could still pick up and play even though it's 40 years old and rock it, and have a good time. Okay, but why would you make a movie about that? Like Asteroids, I could actually see a movie made. Actually, there was a great audio storybook that I remember the theme song from. Asteroids, asteroids, shields up, hold her steady. That's not how I sing. I was trying to mimic the voice, and you're welcome. But I could kind of see some of these, but the real reason that this is being done is because everything is really so plastic today. Everything is so fake, like so manufactured. Manufactured as in, not real, not everything's manufactured as in it's created, but like this is manufactured in that there's nothing, like there's no actual heart behind it. And also the way that people rely on, clickbait and nobody has attention spans anymore, right? There's a statistic that you have to hook people inside of 5 seconds if you want your ad to be seen, let alone your YouTube video in general. I think that taking these brands gives people a sense, this is like I was talking about with Lost in Space in the last segment. It gives people a sense of historicity. It gives them the sense that this is something real, that has weight, that has a past. Okay? Because no one else has a past in their head. I'm speaking very broadly. Obviously, there's lots of people that remember lots of great shit. Okay? But I'm saying in general, in the populace, people they don't have the sense. And so, that's why all of these remakes are getting made. Now, that doesn't mean that back in the day, whatever it wasn't genuinely great. Tetris is genuinely great. Missile Command is genuinely great. All right. Yar's Revenge, I think, were they making a movie about Yar's Revenge? That one might actually kind of be interesting. But these things were genuinely great. It's not like it's just nostalgia being played on you, but what is being played on people that never actually experienced it and didn't really enjoy it, or at least didn't take it seriously enough that they still don't rock it today, is they are being played into believing that this has more to it than what it actually has. It's actually a very shallow film being made, but you think, or the average person thinks, that it has something to it. Because it has a past, because it was a game made in the 70s or the 80s or something. Okay, and that's what they're playing off of. It's like automatic marketing to some degree. Okay, now that doesn't write off that you genuinely, because there's other people who take that too far, and they say that, well, this play on nostalgia is a marketing trick, that isn't real because you didn't really like it. Those things from the past weren't really good. They're just making you think it was. Sometimes that may happen, but no, that's not true for everything. Like the new Ghostbusters, no, that looks like crap, and it's not because of some nostalgia that's getting played on me. The original Ghostbusters films were genuinely great. Like on every metric that you could put them on. They are genuinely funny. They are genuinely well produced and well made. As to where this new one, I can't agree with that sentiment, at least not based on the trailers that I've seen. Okay, but this is why they are making these films, and it's not like it's worse than a cash in. It used to be video game movies got made to cash in on the video game sales, or to like be marketing for the video game itself and to sell it off. That's not why it's being made anymore. Even that, I mean, that could be considered, kind of shady in and of itself, but that's not what it's about anymore. Now it's to create this sense of history that nothing really has anymore, and nobody actually has inside of their brains, in my opinion.
Tonight, Knight Rider crashes into your living room.
I don't believe this.
Well, you'd better believe it. A lone crusader for justice drives this crime crasher.
The world's most fantastic car.
And together they can do just about anything.
After all, we're only human.
Don't press your luck.
And now buckle up for action with the fastest show on television, Knight Rider.
See Knight Rider online today. And now back to Sovryn Tech. Pixel says it should be this panel.
We need to hack into the control center to shut down all of those assassin bots.
Well, you're the android. Can't you just jack in?
Oui, but the way I connect is more like a jack off.
Was that a joke?
Hacking is no joke.
Directly connecting certainly beats doing it with the keyboard.
You're notorious for your love of cyber sex.
Okay, now that was a joke. Just get hacking.
A quick hack solves everything. Hacksec.
It is time for Hacksec, and I got to tell you, there's an incredible irony in the fact that I just played an old commercial during the break for Knight Rider, an awesome 1980s TV show that I still love to this day and still watch. Because we are going to talk about electric cars and autonomous cars. Not that Kit was exactly electric. He had a little more to it than that. But he's certainly the ultimate in autonomous cars that were displayed on on TV, I think. But even though there's others, Dodge, remember Viper and Cobra and all that. So this week, and this is very unfortunate, I hate to use a death to make a point. Okay. And I like to think I'm not using it. I've been wanting to make this point for a while, but now this death really brought it to head. So, but the first death due to Tesla's, automation assistant, that's built into their Tesla Model S, the autopilot mode, as it's called, had occurred this, actually, it didn't occur this week. It occurred almost 2 months ago. And first off, all right, what happened is that a guy turned on his autopilot on his Tesla Model S, and the autopilot failed to realize, a guy in a tractor trailer was, I guess you could say was moving into a lane the way that he shouldn't. There's still a lot of this is all still getting worked out and looked into. It's being investigated by the NHTSA, and ended up taking off like the top half of the car, and it killed the guy that was driving it, or that wasn't driving it. There's no need, we don't need to get into the specifics of who was necessarily at fault. Was, like the tractor trailer driver said that the guy was watching TV or something, and there's not a lot of evidence for that, blah, 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 whatever. People are going to place blame all over the place. Okay. With this whole story. Now I want to give you a little bit of backstory, a little bit of information, because I get a lot of shit for my opinions on this. And obviously, I'm not a fan of Tesla. In fact, I recently did a very special recording that I will make available to Sovryn Tech listeners perhaps in the future. where I did it with a couple of guys, and we recorded about, great guys, we recorded about Tesla, the electric car, and even the automated car and all of this, because they're kind of intertwined. In fact, personally, I think that the electric car, the reason that it's a thing now is all because the plan was to create the automated car. I could go into that with more depth, but anyway, I don't like automated cars. I don't care if you have an automated car, like if you want one, whatever, that's fine. I don't really even care that much for electric cars so much. In fact, electric cars aren't anything new. The electric car was the reason that the electric car never really took off. I mean, yes, there was the idea of lack of independence and lack of range back in the early 20th century. And I mean, like literally like 1907 around there, and even earlier than that when there was an electric car. But the reason that, the electric car never took off was because it was thought of a thing for women. So, obviously I don't believe this, but the next time you see a Tesla, if you're that real kind of alpha male kind of type, you could say to a guy with a Tesla, "Hey, nice lady car you got there." I mean, like, and you'd have history behind you on that statement, because that was the narrative around it. That's why the electric car never took off, in my opinion. I think that might be the real reason, is that, because it was seen as a thing for girls. There you go. Again, I don't agree with that at all. Please, I hope people know me better than that. And if you want an electric car, rock and roll. I don't think it's a chick car by any metric. And well, listen to yesterday's Sex and Science Hour if you want to hear more about that, because I did get into this. But anyway, that was episode 13 of Sex and Science Hour that you can check out. We talked about it during the end of the show. Anyway, I don't like the electric car personally, and I'm not. I mean, it's not my first choice, I should say. I don't really have a problem with it. And I don't, honestly, in many ways, I don't mind automated cars. Here is what I am concerned about. In this story that happened with this guy using the autopilot feature for the Tesla Model S, which first off, it is technically assisted driving. It's not meant to be self-driving yet anyway. And I do kind of blame Tesla for calling it autopilot, because that's inferring, much like planes, okay, that this is going to pilot itself and it does everything on itself. You're not supposed to really just like let go of the wheel and be laissez-faire about it. But that's part of the problem there, I think, is in the marketing. It's in the name that it's called autopilot. Now, a little backstory. Look, I don't like computers in cars. I love computers. I love computers. I love computers. I don't know how many times I need to say that. I love technology. Technology is a beautiful, wonderful thing. Okay. I don't like computers in cars. I don't think they're necessary in cars. And I've had engineers tell me so, that pretty much everything that people do with computers in cars could be done through a feat of mechanical engineering, better gas mileage, all that shit. Okay. There's people who disagree, and that's cool. That's fine. We can disagree on that. But I don't want computers in cars for a million reasons. Okay. I feel like you lose control of the car. I think you add complexity into the system. There's a whole bunch of, I like to fix cars. I like to work on cars. Not everybody does. Okay. All of that's fine. But here's my concern, is that just as it's very difficult, and yeah, you can get them on eBay, blah, blah, blah. I know. And I've owned old cars that don't have computers in them. But just as in 20 years, you're going to be hard pressed to be able to buy a car that probably A, you could still work on yourself, and B, that won't have a computer in it. Because by that time, the cars from the 70s are all going to be rust buckets, or at least a lot of them. So it's going to be very difficult, to own a car that doesn't have a computer in it. And nobody is going to make a car without a computer in it. Of course, all of this is due to government regulation. Again, obviously, every problem with all of this has to do with government regulation, everything that I'm about to say. Other than the fact that, well, and this is still a problem with government, is that these companies, these features, which you got to understand, I think Tesla and everybody else, and and all these a lot of other car companies anyway, really do want to get to the point to where, everybody's in a Google car, where everybody's in an electric self-driving vehicle. Nobody drives anymore. Okay. I think that is the end game for these companies. Now, that end game wouldn't be possible, and the market could speak, if there wasn't a government within which Uber, Tesla, and others could suck the dick of back and forth to get their way and to force things. Like there's a city in Idaho or Ohio where Uber is working with the city to become like the transportation system within the city. Okay, so this can happen and will happen. Now, this is where the real problem comes in. Oh man, I could go on forever about this. Okay, I am fully well aware. You know what argument I get a lot? I get a lot that, well, don't you fly? If you're concerned about self-driving cars killing you or of not having control and all this stuff, how dare you get into an airplane? That's the argument that usually gets brought up. I've heard it a million times. They are not comparable. That argument does not hold up. Okay? This is not it. I mean, this is so night and day. Airplanes have no infrastructure to contend with. There are no roads. There's no traffic lights. There's no pedestrians. There's generally no other airplanes necessarily. It's more or less a straight line to where you're going and all this stuff. There's no infrastructure to contend with. There's none of the shit that you have to deal with. As where with self-driving cars, you have genuine issues that the engineers for self-driving cars admit are problems. Like the fact that if there are sudden changes in the geography, in the road structure or whatever, like why are these things never being tested? Okay, in the northeast of the United States, because on a particularly snowy day, a snowdrift could drastically change what the car understands of its surroundings. Okay, and then boom, it crashes and it's game over. Most of this technology, most of the shit that you hear come out of Silicon Valley in the abstract, okay, most of the shit you hear about will not work in a huge chunk of the planet. It'll never work in a huge chunk of the planet, in my opinion. Not where it's completely automated. If you could hand over the wheel for the human to take over a situation, be able to react quicker or whatever, maybe that'd be a different story. But all right, real quick, affiliates, I am going to be going long with this episode, and thank you so much to affiliates. I know some of you make my shows available on YouTube and other areas, and has really helped with the growth of the show. Thank you so much. But anyway, I will be going long on this one. We'll be going past the 2-hour mark. Okay, I'm going to try and cut to the chase here. The problem with this situation, some people will use this situation to say this is why you never want an automated car. But other people will use this situation to say, this is why every car needs to be automated. And in fact, most honest engineers out there that are working on on self-driving cars will tell you that the only way this is going to work, the only way self-driving cars are going to be able to work for the masses is if everybody is using a self-driving car. That is not okay with me. I'm already losing options on the fact that of how I want a car to be made and which ones I can get. Okay. And that is due to government regulation, and government regulation can just as easily make it so that, be it just within cities where I think it's definitely going to happen, or whatever geographic area, that you have to use automated cars. Now, folks, if you're one of those like right to travel activists, you drive without a driver's license and all this shit and all that. I have a question for you. And I mean this, you can share an answer with me. If we enter a world, okay, where, and I think this could potentially happen. If we enter a world where every car has to be a self-driving car, like let's say in the state of Vermont or something, or within the United States in general, should I move, or should I practice my right to travel with, say, a car that still has a steering wheel and yada, yada? Like what part of that is okay? What part would you recommend that I do? Of course, I guess most of you people are you have such a hard on for Elon Musk and everything that he does, even though he's a government whore, that you're like, well, no, you know what, Stallion, shut up, get in your self-driving car, and deal with it. Okay, stop trying to buck the system. Stop rocking the boat, right? Because, I thought that's what we were supposed to do as anarchists, was rock the boat a little bit peacefully. What do I do then when it becomes illegal to drive your own car? I don't think that's outlandish. I don't think that that's the time that, I think that could actually happen. Well, anyway, regardless, the end of the end game with this story, I think, is that it is leading to where, and I know people are going to be like, well, people die, driving their normal cars, 30,000 deaths on the road in the United States alone per year. I'm well aware of that. I'm also well aware that perhaps autopilot for, on the Model S's could have saved lives already. I imagine the Google car will potentially save lives. Okay, I get all that. All right, but that's not what I'm talking about here, folks. I'm not getting into that. I am talking about having choice. I'm talking about, can I choose to drive a car like people have done for over 100 years? Can I? If the technology says, if like this, because everybody wants these self-driving cars, if the only way these things are going to work is if everybody's using a self-driving car, is it still okay for me to do that? Well, I don't know that that's gonna be a possibility. I mean, and I could get into, there's so many people have no clue. Like the whole reason for a self-driving car is really just so you can look at YouTube more. I mean, that's what it's so you can see more advertising and all this shit. Come on. And it's not like, and I didn't even get into the interconnectedness. I mean, that's a whole other fucking ball game. The interconnectedness of all this stuff. Back in the 80s, Mercedes, with no internet whatsoever, okay, and not much of a computer, was able to do a self-driving car between cities in Germany. It just used, it pretty much used like radar and GPS. That's all that it used. It didn't need any of this crap. I'd be a little more interested in that. That's because that's the other part of this for me, is that every Tesla, the company, knows where you are at any given second when you are in your car. That is also not okay with me. The thing, I love a lot of these features are really interesting. The autopilot feature is really interesting as long as it's an option. But again, I don't think it's going to be an option for long. Like, I said how ironic that I played the Knight Rider commercial there. Look, I love Kit. I love the idea of Kit. I love everything that Kit can do, blah, blah, blah. I think that's really, really interesting. But the difference there is that it's a self-contained system and it's not connected to everything else. Google's not collecting all the data on me. Facebook's not collecting all the data on me. Tesla's not collecting all the data on me. And the government sure as hell isn't collecting all the data on me. Okay? We got sold a false bill of goods when we were looking at the future back then.
The reviews are in, and Babylon 5's a winner. The New York Daily News says Babylon 5 could make Star Wars look like a walk in the park. The Chicago Sun-Times calls it a welcome addition to the sci-fi universe. Impressive, perfectly scaled for TV, raves the LA Times. And the Kansas City Star says Babylon 5 is one space station you're likely to want to visit frequently. See for yourself what everyone's talking about on Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5. Adelaide, why are we stopping?
In the future, we have a custom.
What's the custom?
After a successful mission, a team usually has love, a ménage à trois, or orgy.
Yeah, there's only two of us.
I already contacted the others to come join us. I love women too.
Whoa, Adelaide, you're beautiful, but you're an android.
I am fully functional. I am programmed in multiple techniques, a broad variety of...
Wow, I guess so. You did say you move fast. Adelaide, the future is going to be so good.
The climax.
It is time for the climax, where I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. But folks, I'm just telling you, Mike, if you want self-driving cars, if you want electric cars, like I said, you go ahead, you be Chuck Yeager, you break that new frontier, you do your thing, and hopefully you won't die. Okay? Go for it. Just don't have that force me to want what you want. Okay? I want to drive. I like to drive. I like to drive my own car. It is a joy to me Let me have that joy. And my concern is that everybody's being so happy, so goddamn lucky about this new car tech that I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. I guess now I know how smokers feel. Not that I like smoking. Anyway, yeah, I mean, now that's a little more comparable, right? You can't smoke here. You can't. What's that old Dennis Leary bit? It's like eventually one day you're just the only place you're going to be able to smoke is in your apartment underneath the sheets. And even then they're going to be knocking on the door and then you're going to yell at them, "Oh, you're never going to take me alive." See? Right. Oh, anyway, drives me insane. Okay. So what I want to talk about now, again, I am into overtime, well aware of that. I'll try not to make this too much longer here. So those that follow my work at zog.ninja, which is kind of my little home on the web, for over a year, I have been doing daily content. I would either do a Dark Android blog post or a Zog blog post, or I'd share something, or I'd share the podcasts, Sex and Science Hour, Sovereign Tech, whatever. And relax, don't worry, zog.ninja is not going anywhere. But I can no longer afford to take the time to do that. And the goals that I had for doing that blog, those blog posts and all that, were not met. And after a year, I think it's time you can say, well, you just got to keep on going and all that stuff. Like it took Sovereign Tech a couple of years to really hit its stride. But after a year, like I really, I cannot afford to keep taking time to do that. And there's a lot of plans that I had in mind, for that website, some of which are still going to happen, some of which are, kind of going to fall by the wayside. The market signals I'm getting are that there isn't an interest. There are people, and I love you. There are people that visited that site every single day. That even signed up for, my email list, which, yeah, I have an email list, folks, but believe me, I don't even know your emails. And it was just so that you could get those, that daily content where you want it in your email inbox. I mean, I go so out of my way more than almost any other podcaster I know, as far as the ways that you can get the information, or, the content that I disseminate. I mean, like, I just don't know anybody else that does it that much or that has that many options available. But I can't afford it anymore. Now, people have shared it, and I know, and I love the listeners of this show. Thank you so much. I mean, one of my, so don't, please, nobody take this as anything against you. I really appreciate what, everything you've done for me, for the show, and thus for disseminating these ideas. I was really hoping that part of my goals with that was that I guess people I like sharing podcasts on social media, but I guess I'm the only one that kind of does that. And so I was like, well, maybe people like things as blog posts, because I see a lot of people, in the various communities that I hang out in, or that I frequent, that they like to share. They share plenty of blog posts, right? And so I was like, all right, well, then I'll write the stuff out in blog posts, and maybe then, it'll get some shares, and, we can kind of grow the audience here, get people on board with these ideas, and, who knows what could come out of that. And that's all very exciting. And, maybe people would be interested in my games, and make some, I do all of this stuff, for me, because like my video games, I make my video games because the video games I want to play, many of them don't exist. So I made my own, and people really enjoy them, and I'm glad. But, if people enjoy what I'm doing and like, and I get advertisers now and sponsors and all that. And I love love my sponsors. To make money by creating what I want out there, or by getting my ideas out there and all that stuff. What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that. And so I was really hoping, but I definitely, this show has grown so quickly. Anything I could do to help it grow, I wanted to do. And, so, I did these blog posts, but honestly, like they never, there's great people out there that shared them. Thank you so much for doing that. It is not a requirement that you people share anything. I don't require anything of anybody. Okay. But the stuff just, it wasn't getting my website. I got, especially for a very independent website, I got a lot of traction. I got a lot of website visits. There's a lot of traffic, not traction, I should say. I got a lot of traffic, and that was great. That's really cool. I'm glad. And it definitely helped me, hone my writing ability as well. And And like I said, the website's not going anywhere. I'm just not gonna do daily content. I'm not gonna write the stuff every day. I will also now probably be publishing it mainly on Medium. This is an incredible irony. Okay. I noticed that the people who are really big into, and actually somebody said this before, I noticed it before, but somebody said this before I could. I noticed that people that are big into decentralization and, having all these open platforms and blah, blah, blah. Where do they post all their stories of theirs that get shared? They post them on Medium. And I'm just like, oh, what the fuck? And so like a part of me feels like, well, if you don't post it on Medium, nobody, I guess maybe nobody takes this seriously. Maybe there's a bit of a stigma around it. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm not talking about Sovereign Tech listeners or anything. I'm just saying that I wasn't getting the traction and the reach that I was looking for in doing that. It wasn't coming together. I'm not blaming anybody listening to the sound of my voice. Okay. But it wasn't happening. So, I mean, some people were very gracious to share it. Actually, speaking of MK Lords, because it's MK Lords Day on July 4th. Woo! As we mentioned earlier in the show. She would share, like through Airbits, because she worked for Airbits, she would share some of my very important security stories, and I am so honored by that. I mean, that means the world to me. And that was great. And other people shared it, and all that's awesome. It just wasn't meeting the levels that I was looking for. And so after a year, and you're not getting you're not getting what you want out of something, then you stop. That's it. And I know people loved it. Like I said, I know people went to that. There's people that have it set as their homepage. Thank you. I love you. There's people who really were excited to get the daily content and everything. I'm still going to be doing lots of content. Don't worry about that. But yeah, just the daily content's just not going to be a thing anymore. I just cannot afford to take the time to do that. It's time to try some other things because, in today's world, like I say, I got to make money. Okay. So the website's still there. Nothing's changing as far as that goes. And obviously there's plenty of ways, I have some odd 7,000 Twitter followers. You can follow me on Twitter. Everything I do gets shared there. Line. I mean, I don't know. There's tons of ways, and you can still go to contact.zog.ninja, donate.zog.ninja if you want to donate, to show appreciation, show value for value and whatever. You can do that. Yeah, so I just wanted to let people know that that's what's going on. I will be refocusing the website significantly. The website will be getting a very serious refresh. So that is coming. I've talked about that for a while, but now it's going to be, far more refocused, but it's not going away. And I'm still going to be doing blog posts of some kind, but now the blog posts are going to be a lot more varied. And I could probably spend more time on them since I don't have to write one per day. I can spend time, and make one, really, really go far more in depth and perhaps even be more long form. Not that I wrote always short pieces or anything. I mean, usually I wrote pretty long stuff. So that's coming. Also, Patreon backers, I want to let you know that there are huge changes coming to Patreon, for Patreon backers, just because that system makes things so easy. And, Bitcoin backers, I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry. But honestly, I think like the idea that accepting I feel like, the Bitcoin community is effectively dead. Okay. And I'm really honored by people that still donate Bitcoin to me regularly, and you know who you are. And thank you so much. But like that whole thing where accepting Bitcoin or talking about Bitcoin and all that somehow like brings in an audience automatically and all this, not true. Not true. So please don't ever count on that. And kind of like I said, with some other things, there, maybe I'll talk about it. If people ask me about it, maybe I will take time to talk about it. But I have learned a whole lot in the past year, kind of about entrepreneurial stuff, and that pretty much everything that you are told on just about on every normal website, and even not so normal websites or podcasts or whatever, on how to make money on the internet or do all this stuff, it's really all bullshit. None of it is really true. Just having a website and posting daily content and doing all this stuff. All these things are like stuff that they tell you as recommendations. This is how you make money doing what you're doing. Or, you build this up, you do this and all this stuff. None of that. I can just tell you, none of it works. I'm not bitter. I'm not mad at the people that have enjoyed the content. I'm not mad at people that didn't enjoy the content. I'm just saying that a lot of what you hear about this it's just not true. You know, I don't know exactly how to quantify, how to make something really successful. I don't know how to explain how Sovryn Tech, you know, has grown so much necessarily. Okay. I know it works for me, but that doesn't mean it works for everybody. Now, I will say, if you are somebody that does know how this works, and you're actually really pulling it off, and I don't want to get into shit that's like crazy scammy. I really don't. But if you are, you know, please get in touch with me. We can do some kind of value add. Okay. I'd love to know, because I think what gets shared on the show, albeit it's my opinions, honestly, I think some of the info is unique and a lot of people consider it very important, and that's why they do share what they do share. And so I'd love to get it out to more people and just grow from there. Because, something I'm hearing a lot in other tech journalism is a lot of people are realizing that there's this idea, and I mean this as a metaphor, not in the literal sense, that people are really wanting to just burn it all to the ground. Okay. And like, if people are in that mindset, Sovryn Tech is here for you, baby, in the tech world. I mean, there's nothing else out there like it. And so I'd love to be able to reach out to those people, you know, and be on board with that. So anyway, you know, I just want to say it's all just a major refocusing. And, you know, thank you so much for everybody that's really appreciated it. It's not that I don't like doing it. I love writing. I absolutely love to write. But it's something that's not meeting the goals, that I have. And again, I can't afford, you know, to keep on doing that. So anyway, hopefully that didn't come off as some kind of bitter screed. I genuinely hope no Sovryn Tech listeners, you know, are offended, by that. There's points where it's frustrating, no doubt about it, especially when I see some of the banal crap that comes out of other people in this space, the tech space, the anarchist space, and whatever, that I look at it and I just go, that is absolutely meaningless. Nobody can do anything with that. What the hell are they even talking about? You know, and it goes far and wide and whatever. And it's totally recognizable as being clickbait. Yeah. It's frustrating, you know, when I see successes like that. But I mean, I guess it just goes to show that society is really built to appease the average person, you know, not the intelligent, not the, I guess that's just what it is. And those people, maybe that's the trick. Maybe they know how to hook average people, and keep them hooked, you know. And that's the other thing too, is people don't need to stay hooked. All right. I don't need people to stay hooked on me or anything. This is all meant to be lots of fun and talk about a variety of things, but anyway, enough of that. There we go. So if you're wondering what happened, that's the deal. And you know, there you go. Carpe Lucem, everybody. If you do appreciate what I do, all the other things I do, and again, a lot of really exciting stuff coming up, please don't hesitate to donate. Go to donate.zog.ninja. Thank you all to those that do already, and thank you to the sponsors of Sovryn Tech. Woo! I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. And connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.